Success Insight shares the stories of the people with passion and drive who make things happen in the world. Here's your host, Howard Fox.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Coaching and Consulting Insight series on the Success Insight podcast. The Coaching and Consulting Insight series introduces you to coaches and consultants that work with leaders, entrepreneurs, business owners, and professionals to create their best life and achieve and perform at their full potential. Our guest today is Blaine Oelkers. Blaine has been described as America's only Chief Results Officer. He helps clients get results by working with them to discover habits that bring success and results and stick with them for a lifetime. Blaine, welcome to the Coaching and Consulting Insight series on the Success Insight podcast.
Hey, Howard, thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it. And I hope today to be one of those insights for your listeners, but I just want to acknowledge you, and you have a wide range of podcasts, having done hundreds of them, but you're always trying to help people, right? And I think service to many leads to greatness. I think you're doing a great job. And I love this format where you put it up online. And so you're probably giving insight to people not yet born. Someone's going to see this. They're not even born yet, but they're going to see this out in the future, and they're going to gain some insight. So I just want to acknowledge you for that, and looking forward to having a great conversation with you today.
I appreciate that. And, it's funny, Blaine, I'm not married. I don't have kids. And so, and I'm getting a little bit older. And one of the concepts that occasionally hits my, I don't know, somewhere in my lobe in this gray matter is legacy. And I love the fact that some of these episodes, maybe a line, a conversation, a quote is going to resonate for years to come. So I appreciate you sharing that little clip with our audience. And, thank you again. I appreciate it. For our listeners, now, I have not met Blaine before, I would say, virtually in person, which we are right now, but I had heard him a couple of years ago, and lo and behold, a couple of weeks ago, I got an email from him on LinkedIn. And so, folks, here we are. So that's the power of being present in the moment, the power of networking, LinkedIn. And there's a couple of things that Blaine does, and we're going to let him talk about it, which I think you're going to love, and hopefully you're going to act on as a result of hearing this episode. So before we really dive in, Blaine, I'd love to hear a little bit more about your background, and I definitely want to hear about Chief Results Officer. That's a pretty bold statement. So let's
yeah. Yeah. So there's moments of dawning comprehension where, the light bulb goes off and something big happens, and you kind of remember that for the rest of your life. And so I've had a few of those. And for me, it started back in college. So I went to Purdue University in Indiana. I actually met my wife there. We're still married here after 30 years. So that's a good sign. But in college, and maybe a little bit before college, I've always been a seeker. Someone, looking for how do you get better, in improving myself. And in college, I sent away for an audio book summary of this book called Think and Grow Rich. I know you've heard of that book before. And so I got this audio tape in the mail, and it was actually recorded by Earl Nightingale. He kind of went on to be a mentor of mine as well through his audio programs. But I listened to this book, and it really resonated for me, this idea, which later I ended up calling Waiteba. What you think about, you bring about. And so Think and Grow Rich, it can be riches of financial nature, which is what the book is about, but it's also about riches of any kind, anything that you kind of ardently desire, and you can kind of conceive it, but then you can believe it and build a faith in it. You can achieve it. You can make it happen in the physical world. And so actually I have the book. I read this version of the book. This is the one I read back in the 80s.
That's a well-read book, by the way.
Yes. At the time I read it, and it helped me, and it helped me in my relationships. It helped me in business. And it helped me to have a pretty good level of success, enough success. And I'd read the book maybe 15 to maybe 20 times. By the time that I went and I was able to buy, now they claim there's 100 million copies, but there's definitely tens of millions of copies of that book out. But I went and I bought one of the original books. And so this is, looks a little bit different, but from 1937, this is one of there were 5,000 printed on that first print run. And so when I opened up this book and I came to this first page, it says, what do you want most? And I read that page and I go, whoa, wait. I never read that in this book over here. There's something different about this book. And the first 2 pages were these like instructional pages from Napoleon Hill. He was the author. And then I started reading and I'm like, whoa, this is so different of an experience because he did a lot of shouting in the book, meaning he had a lot of sentences that were all in caps. But this book here, it's just regular print. There was no all caps anywhere, right? So there was this shouting. And then I got to a few chapters and I go, this stuff just wasn't in that book I read, in this book. It just wasn't in there. And so anyway, I thought that was really interesting. And especially there was mention of other mentors of his, one was Jesus. And like, I realized, man, I would have remembered that if that was in that first book. So anyway, but what happened was I applied those 2 pages. And at the time I was a business owner. My business was worth maybe about $300,000. But I was self-sufficient with that business. I had high profit margins, but I wanted $1 million business, a business worth $1 million. And I had a plan using the book, method I learned in that book. And I thought, well, maybe it's going to take 3, 4, 5 years. But within 5 or 6 months, it happened. And I built that business, $1 million business, still making money from that business today.
Right.
But it was in applying those 2 pages. And we could unpack those pages if you want. But what happened for me is that in conjunction with this other moment of dawning of comprehension, my son, he was 1 year old and I was away on a business trip and I came back and he kind of gave me a cold shoulder. And I said, Beth, what's going on here, with Bo? And she says, well, he kind of forgot who you were. And I was like, whoa, that like hit home. And at that moment, I decided I wanted to work from home. And so it took me a year, but I was able to get to that point where I could work from home. And that was 27 years ago. So for me, what happened is I'm working from home in businesses that have no daily operations. So I have a lot of time for self-development, reflection, work on myself. And that's where I began to be known as someone who helps other people get results. And they started calling me Chief Results Officer or an expert on personal implementation, where you figure out how to influence yourself to get stuff done. And so that's where this title ended up coming, Chief Results Officer. And I'm the Chief Results Officer for a lot of mastermind groups, which are mostly business owners. And I make sure that everybody gets results on a weekly basis. I have a framework for all that, but they call me that. And then the title stuck, Chief Results Officer. And then I said, well, who else is a Chief Results Officer? So I went to the patent office and I applied for a trademark, service trademark on that, and I got it. So now I have the R with the circle. So I'm America's only Chief Results Officer because you would have to license that term for me to use it. So that's kind of a cool business side of the story. But back to the book, just to summarize those 2 pages, the first one said, what do you want most? Like, you got to define what you want. You got to gain super clarity so your brain knows exactly what you want, down to dates and numbers and stuff. Now, it may take a little longer. You might not have all the answers, but you got to get crystal clear about what you want. That was page 1. But the second page, which made a big difference, was he said, look, this is not a novel to read for pleasure. This is like a textbook, and you should read no more than 1 chapter a day, and you have to read it with other people because you're going to need their ideas, their input, their help. And it could just be through their thoughts help, but you're going to need help and you got to read it in community. And so that's what made a difference for me is the next 5 months, I did a book study with different people where I read the book five times, but we did a book study and we followed the way that he said to do that. And you might be familiar with like the mastermind concept, like if 2 minds come together, a third mind that's a little more powerful, is created. So like if I said, hey, Howard, help me with some coaching, I need some insights. And you said, okay, Blaine, I'm going to give you some career coaching. And I said, Howard, here's my 10 ideas. And then you on your own came up with 10 ideas. But if we came together and blended our 2 minds, we might have 30, 40, or 50 ideas because we would play off each other. So 1 + 1 doesn't equal 2, it might equal 3, 4, or 5. That's that mastermind concept. But anyway, that's a little bit about how I got here and why I feel like I feel like I'm on the planet to help people take control of their lives, by taking control of themselves. I call that self-fluence,
Mhm.
the art and science of influencing yourself. But I think that's kind of why I'm here, and hopefully could provide some insights to help people do that.
I love that. And so these missing pages, these 3 pages, those were you needed to really know those. That was kind of like the key to turn the lock to get into the door to read and understand the rest of the book.
Yeah, and what was interesting is that when I discovered that, there was only one source where I could get, they call it the facsimile version of the book, like had all the caps that I was talking about and no missing passages. And then that gentleman passed away, and I couldn't get the book anymore. And so luckily, being somewhat of a little bit of a marketer, I did find that that original version was not copyright protected. And so I went back, I went back, and I actually have, well, it's green, so I got a green screen. You can't see it,
Okay.
but I created Think and Grow Rich, the book study edition.
Oh, wow.
And so what that is that is the original version of the book. And then I made a little guide to try to help more people extract the knowledge from the book. So my guidebook is part of that book. And then, like I said, I did all these book studies, and you should do it in some kind of a book study with another person. So I added like here are the key points to this chapter. Then after the chapter, here are the book study questions. What's your favorite sentence? And I gave all my answers to that. So you could have a book study with me just by reading the book. But I put all that in there. So it's kind of like 3 in 1, a guidebook, the book study, and the original text all in one, but I couldn't get it anyplace else. So I did create that, and that's been fun to be able to share that version with people. But
Yeah,
you're right, that unlocked it for me.
okay. And these groups, these work study groups consuming the book and the guides and the tools, that is ongoing for you today with the work that you're doing still?
Yeah. So that's ongoing. I created a masterclass about Think and Grow Rich, but yeah, facilitating those groups. And some are small. Sometimes someone just does it with a family member, a business partner. And then other times those groups can be larger, where you might have 10, 20 or more people. And now, one of the silver linings of COVID and all that stuff was the popularity of Zoom. Everybody knows how to do Zoom. Some people even know how to do breakout rooms in Zoom. So now, you can have these book studies or study clubs, whatever you want to call it, very easily using Zoom. So that's been kind of nice to facilitate, larger study groups using Zoom.
Okay. And the study groups, is that's all available? We want to make sure we provide links so people can go
Yeah.
and take advantage of that. The book itself, I have a colleague. In fact, we co-created with two others, a couple others, a mastermind group. We'd meet every week and talk about what are we working on, what issues, what opportunities, what do we need help with. And one of my peers in that group literally reads Think and Grow Rich every year.
Nice.
Okay. How often do you read it?
Yeah.
What do you,
I
or,
read.
or what do you recommend? What do you recommend?
Well, so I make sure that I read it every year. And sometimes I'll listen to it, through like an Audible type of a
Mhm.
thing, but at least once a year. I mean, I'm probably getting close to 70 times now that I have read it. But once a year, or when you need it. So what I mean by that is that there is, there's an accumulation of head trash that
Mhm.
happens. And so the more you watch the news or hang around negative people, you can actually kind of lower your own frequency and get filled with head trash. And so Think and Grow Rich is one of those books, as there are other books and audio programs that help you kind of take out the head trash, or dilute it. Sometimes I say the solution to pollution is dilution. And sometimes you need a high ratio of positive to kind of cancel out the negative, which could be doubt, and that little voice, which sometimes gets loud, that you can't do it, or you're not good enough, or whatever the case may be. So yeah, I think when you need that this is a good book for that can help you to kind of refresh, rekindle some of your desires. Now, it would be best if in the reading of that book, before you read the book, you decided to bring something that you wanted to bring about. I call it your bring about statement, like what you think about, you bring about, but something that you want to bring about in the world. And if you're really struggling, that then I try to make that as small as possible. Like win early, win often. Make it small, right? And start with small bring about statements, and then make them bigger and bigger. Because if you don't win enough, you're gonna quit, right? And so there's a ratio. I call it the golden ratio of success to failure, right? And so you need a little failure because that's where you learn, right? So some people need like 10% failure. That's all they need. Some people can do well with 30% failure, but I noticed if it got over, so if at 40, 50% of the time you're failing, then you lose total interest, and you get depressed, you get down. I coach both my kids in tennis. And I realized 70% was the maximum. Like if they started, they needed to win 70% of the time. If they were winning 90% of the time, then I had to put them in a tournament where they would get humbled so that they would learn, right? Because if they're winning all the time, they're not really learning. But if they lost more than 30% of the time, then I had to get them in easier tournaments, because then they were losing their confidence and they were losing their desire to even want to do it, right? So there's a ratio there. I'm probably a 90-10 person myself, because I like to win early, win often, and keep the momentum going. But I have no problem like nano sizing something really small to make sure that you are winning. So we kind of adjust those based on your winning. If you're winning all the time, then it's time to raise the bar. But for most people, it's not that. For most people, I find it's a lowering of the bar, get success, and then bring it back up.
Okay. We've chatted a little bit, tangentially about white table, what you think about, you bring about. And, for our listeners, that's how I met Blaine in this. It was probably a TED talk, and I don't know how I came to listen to it, but it was profound for me. And because of it, and I will attribute that talk, wherever it was, to me being here right now, chatting with Blaine from the comfort of Southern Nevada, because I literally took this information, put it on my phone, and you know how we lock our phones, we have to swipe or hit a button, and that, this white table, which we're going to learn more about, was on my phone. And so let me first say thank you, because what was on the phone at that moment in time, for the most part, has come about. There's a couple things that have not come about yet, but that's okay. But talk to us more about that.
Yeah, yeah. First of all, you made my day, warms my heart. That's why I think I'm here, is to just somehow be a part of your story if something that I talk about works. And most of my stuff, there's a lot of science behind it, but most of it's like self-evident. Just try it on for a few days and see, right? But this concept of white table, what you think about, you bring about, is it's not new. It's not new. The way I say it there in that little white table, which is the acronym of that is new. But this concept of we become what we think about, Earl Nightingale talked about that. You can go back the Bible, as a man thinketh in his heart, so is he. You can go back even before that. Some of the great philosophers, had these sayings. Be true to thyself, know thyself. And what you think about, the thoughts that are dominant, create a dominant behavior, right? And so this concept it's great that science is backing it up now, that there's a piece of the brain called the reticular activating system, that actually decides what the conscious mind gets to know, right? So right now we all have like all these things going on. Our heart is pumping, we're breathing. There's all kinds of, there's probably 1,000 different inputs going on in relation to our body, and what we hear and see and all that. And so without a filter, you would be crazy. You would go crazy. So this filter decides what to pass along. And so you can kind of program that RAS. And once you program it, then it feeds you those things that are going to bring you closer to what you want. And so now psychology, brain science, and scanning of the brains and all that is kind of catching up to this fact that that's what happens. What you think about, you bring about. So you need to kind of control what you think about, but also this is the main thing that I talked about in my TEDx talk. So and we could talk about how people could watch that if they want.
Sure.
But I talked about how this really pulled me through some difficult times. Like my dad passed away the day my son was born, and it was very traumatic. And I was going to either be bitter or better. But this Waiteba got me onto the better path. And it's easy to realize that this thing is at work. The example I used was my son bought a maroon Acura TL, I think it was called, and after he told me that and sent me a picture, and this probably happens for a lot of us, I see that car all over, right? Or you get a new car, or somebody tells you about a new car. I'm seeing that car in the maroon. So it's not like, Acura put these cars all out for me to see. I just wasn't tuned into them. I wasn't seeing it. But the moment I tuned into it, then I started to see it everywhere. And when you realize that that's a great power that you have, then you have to figure out, how can I plant a seed in that garden of my mind so that the Raz brings me those things that are going to, make stuff happen. And so I talk about this example of your phone. And so there was a study done a number of years ago. They put a little piece of software and they see how many times does somebody unlock their phone every day. And the average was like 110. Now, Apple, they tell you your screen time. There's a part of it where you can see how many times. And most people, it's 60 to 160 times a day you're unlocking that phone, right? And so what I say is, I have people take a picture of this card, but you can take any picture you want, but make that your unlock screen. So now you're seeing that. Now, after a number of days, somewhere between 4 to 7 days, your conscious mind doesn't see it anymore. Your subconscious mind does see it, but then you can also change it around. So I'll move some words around. I use a free program called Canva to build my little picture. But
I love Canva.
yeah, yeah. It's so you can build that picture, and some people put something for their family, like whatever's important to you, put that in there too. But what that goal, that bring about thing that you're trying to bring about, put that in there, right? That's the most important thing to see day after day after day. And what you think about, you bring about. It works. It works both ways. If you don't think about anything, then you're susceptible to what other people want to bring about, and you'll get pulled into their stuff. Or if you don't plant anything in the garden of your mind, then the weeds grow, which is kind of worse, because then you got to pull the weeds out. So I think it's important to kind of control, what you think. And the most important thing is to get clear about where you want to go. And don't worry about, like, it doesn't have to be perfect. It's probably going to change. But you get that, I call it to point B, like you're going from point A to point B, knowing where you want to go. That's the most important. Then we'll figure out a plan to get there. But then you don't even need to know where you're starting from. As long as you can point in the direction of where you want to go and move towards that, that's going to give you energy. That's what kind of success and progress is all about. Success is like the realization of your goal. Like, it's very personal. If you're moving towards your goal, I would call you a success. You moving out, to Nevada, that was your goal, that you're living success in that. Now once you get there, yeah, now it's time to pick something else, and start to move towards that. But that's where people are the happiest and they're the most energized, is when they're moving towards that thing that they want, and they're measuring the progress. Now if you make no progress, that's fatiguing. So you have to be careful to then nano size it to gain progress and kind of keep that momentum.
And that's why we have coaches to help us with that progress, to maintain that momentum. I am curious, because I have a potential challenge for both of us. Well, not a challenge for both of us, a challenge as a result of you and I being together today. Do you share your white table? For example, what is on your screen, or is it just personal to you?
Yeah, so people can do it different ways. And so some people, they're worried about, like, people may see that, right? So they put it in code. So there's initials, there's something that they know what it is, but the outside world wouldn't. So that's one choice. Me, no. I have mine. Mine is very clear
Okay.
on what I'm bringing about, this year. And I go a little bit further. I handwrite. And there's something about handwriting. Actually, handwriting in cursive is even better, but accessing different parts of the brain. And so for me this year, right on my screen, is the number 334, and then below that it says owners. And so right now I'm bringing about the serving, and so for this one program I call the Super Results Program, I want to be serving 334 owners. By I don't set my goals for the end of the year. I set my goals for November 15th. One, you get a little buffer, but two, I'd like to kind of be done so I could maybe, not do anything in December, or use that as a little time off.
Okay.
But anyway, on that, and then I've got some other stuff, family stuff and things that are on there. But yeah, I'm happy to share. What about you? Is yours in code or
No, mine is out there to be seen. In fact, an ex-girlfriend saw that, and especially with Move Out West, needless to say, we broke up soon thereafter, because Why do I
Right.
want to get started with a guy who's going to, he wants to leave? Okay. I
Right.
get that. Thank you very much. Here's an idea. I'm going to share my white table. Yeah, and I have that on Canva. Folks, if you don't have Canva, on our show notes or on our webpage, successinsightpodcast.com, there's a link there to Canva. It's the most wonderful program to creating your own personal graphics. I'm going to share mine. Blaine, if you would send me the image of yours, I'm
Yeah.
going to put those on our show notes. And so the challenge for anyone listening to this podcast is I would love if you could share your white table, what you think about, you bring about. Maybe there's some directions we need to provide. We'll get those. Share it. Share it with us. Let us know what change you want to make, what you want to implement, what habit you want to start. Let's see where we go with it. You never know.
Yeah. Yeah. And a lot of things I've seen a lot of, ones that were just one word that's they wanted to be more trusting this year, or they just had like a one word theme for the year. And then I have others that were very detailed about becoming a screenplay writer. And, I will say many times the bigger ones like that one, it did happen for that gentleman. Ron is his name. But it took longer than he thought. And so sometimes that happens, takes a little longer, but it was on there and he left it on there. And I've had people come back in 2 months and say, hey, big breakthrough, this, and this happened. And then other people come back 2 years, and say, hey, this finally did happen. I wanted to let you know. So it's a great challenge. It's a fun challenge. And it's something that, you control. So you could change it. But get some direction, get that point B dialed in a little bit, and then start moving towards it. That's where you kind of get the juice of life, and you start moving faster and faster and faster. Now, there's going to be setbacks. Life is going to throw some punches.
Oh,
We
yeah.
all know that, and that happens to everybody. But you'll have that North Star in that bring about statement that you can kind of focus in back and get moving. So yeah, keep at it.
I love it. I love it. Let's chat a little bit more about your super results program. What does that look like?
Yeah, so Super Results program, a couple different. One is their master classes. So I have master class like on Think and Grow Rich, which I really love that book, read it a lot. Master classes on creating habits. We're creatures of habits. Habits are super important in the formation a lot of times of long lasting success. And then so that's one component of master classes. Another component is Super Results days, and so these are days that you come to get your stuff done, whatever's on your to-do list. And it's like an accountability day where we check in every few hours, but there's a topic for the day. And so whatever the topic is, I'm doing a training on that topic. So sometimes it's business focused, like profit. Sometimes it's habits focused. Sometimes it's like hack your head trash day. It's about the mindset. Sometimes my one coming up I have is on top tools and resources that business owners use. So there are different topics that are interspersed with this accountability days. And so I do a number of those every month. I love those. Like I get so much done, especially when they're on a Saturday for me, because then the world isn't really asking me for anything. So I get a lot of my own stuff done. So I like that. And then I have a kind of a VIP version of that program, which has like a lot of accountability, and if you figure out, like if you're trying to be successful, especially in a business, there's a level of accountability that helps. And there's a level of planning, like this idea of next day planning and not going to bed without having the next day planned, is big. And so sometimes people, it helps them to have, more accountability around planning and executing, kind of what they want rather than what the world can almost overwhelmingly feel like it's pushing on you.
Okay. One thing we'll definitely do is provide the backlinks to the website so folks can learn more about the work. And I am reminded of something you said early on, maybe perhaps even before we hit record, is this idea of getting things done. I don't know, get things done in 30 minutes versus that you get normally kind of take a day to do. I don't forget the exact
Yeah, yeah. No,
words
no.
of
So
it.
so I do have this training, which we could talk about.
Yeah,
It's called the 30-minute hour.
30
So it's
minutes.
how to get an hour's worth of stuff done in just 30 minutes. Now, so this is something from the one company I have is called Self-Fluence. So it's about influencing yourself. But here's the great thing about everything that we teach at Self-Fluence is you already know how to do it. Like there's nothing else to do or buy, or you don't need anything else. It's the power you already have. You're just not harnessing it right. So let's say, Howard, let's talk about the reward first. So let's say that we're going to show everybody, all the listeners right now, how to have 30-minute hours. So you're going to have 30-minute hours. Let's say we put 4 of those together, 4 30-minute hours. And now after that, you have 2 hours of guilt-free time that you could do anything you want. So I like to start with the reward. So for me, if I got a guilt-free 2 hours, I like to ride the Peloton bike. I would probably do a longer ride there. I like to kind of connect with old friends, so I'd probably do that. Maybe take a little walk or go for a hike. Maybe take a nap. I've been known to like to nap, but those are some of the things that I sometimes feel guilty doing too much of, but I would use as a little reward for myself for these 30-minute hours. So if you worked hard and you had those, and then you had kind of 2 guilt-free hours, what would you do?
Definitely the nap is on first on my list. I'm a professional napper. I probably guilt-free. I would go for a walk or do some type of workout because I know I don't do it enough.
Okay, nice, nice.
Yeah. So 30-minute nap. I do power naps, but then
Okay.
I have I love the head trash from social media and all that. I have to get away. So go for a nice walk, go out to nature, just enjoy it.
Yeah, nature is a great one. And nature, it's interesting, where you are, you can get out and get into nature, but now there's so many great apps too, apps with the nature sounds and even the visualizations of nature that you can kind of bring nature to you wherever you are. So I really do like that because there's something connective, to that. So that's good. So I like people to think about what would you do with the guilt-free time that you're going to create, because it could be easy for you to create these 30-minute hours, but then you just go and do more work. And so if you're really trying to have a big work breakthrough, it's okay to be out of balance a little bit, but you're going to burn out if you just keep, churning. So, all right. So the key here to this power of the 30-minute hour is something that you already know and you already done. And so there's a day of the year that some people have it more than one time a year, but there's a certain day where people get 3 to 10 times as much stuff done than a normal day. Right. So now we're only looking for 2x. We're looking for 30 minutes being worth an hour. That's just 2x. But people are 3 to 10 times more productive than a normal day. Do you know what day that is?
I'm not even going to begin to respond to that.
Okay, some people know, but here it is. And this is the first thing to remember. It is the day before vacation.
Oh, yeah, because
So
you're just cranking out to get things done.
right. So if you think back to that day before vacation, you operate at a different level. So I have little signs that say day before vacation to kind of help me remember that. And so what I tell people of those, I'll give you an acronym, PDF. Now, PDF stands for portable document format, but most people know like what a PDF is. You say, hey, I'm going to print out the PDF. So from now on, remember 30-minute hour, day before vacation, PDF. And the PDF stands for plan, delegate, and focus. And that's what's different about the day before vacation. And that's how you can have 30-minute hours. So let's talk about planning. So the day before vacation, you can't just like wake up and leave that day to chance. You're like making the list, the checklist. This stuff has to be done. Your day is like in chunks, and you got time blocks, and you're like a super planner that day. So if you can plan your day, I guarantee you're going to save half the time, right? So next day planning is really key. Typically, also in the planning phase, you're getting up early, right? So maybe you do get up 15 minutes, 30 minutes early to make sure that you get more done tomorrow, right? So that's a big one. And so planning is the P of PDF, planning. So you want to do the planning, and then D stands for delegate. So when you're going to go away on a vacation, you're not doing everything yourself, right? You think who before you do, right? I always say, think who before do. So you think who else could do this besides you? Because you can't do it. You're going to be leaving. So you're a much high delegator. So again, when you're looking at, I need to get this stuff done in the next, 1 hour, 3 hour, 5 hour, whatever the project size is, think about who else could do parts of that. Because that's going to help you have more 30-minute hours, and look to see where can you simplify something, where can you automate something, and then lastly, who else could do it, besides you. So you're also looking at that. But the biggest part of the day before vacation methodology is this focus, this fierce focus. And so when you think about the day before vacation, you could also list the things you don't do. So there's no chit chat. You're not watching TV shows. I mean, there's no idleness, right, to that day. You're saying no a lot to new requests. Sorry, no, we can't do it. Can't do it, right? And it's that you got to bring that fierce focus into your kind of everyday planning, right? You say no a lot. You tend to stay on schedule, and you tend to use timers, right? So you're like, okay, look, I've got 30 minutes to do this. You tell Siri or whoever to set an alarm because you only have 30 minutes. Right. So you're using timers, and you're setting times. And for me, like if I say, look, I've got all these calls to make, I've got to do these 6 calls. So I'm only going to do 10 minutes a call. I'll set a timer, and I'll have that timer go off. It can be silent if I don't want the person to hear it, but you're setting timers and you're using timers, all day long. And then you're also using tasking. Now, the day before vacation, people get really good at single tasking, multitasking, and batch tasking. So single tasking means when there's something like you really have to get done, you turn off all the rings, dings, and bings, you go into airplane mode, you shut all the other windows down, and you go after that thing with a single-minded focus, right? So you want more of that time. And you'll find that you can get an hour's worth of work done in 30 minutes if you shut the world out really completely and focus in on that, and don't let any distractions come, or if they come, minimize them, right? So I'll be in the middle of a work hour, deep work like that, and I'll think of some idea. Oh, wow, I've got to send Howard something. I forgot to send Howard something, but I just write it on a piece of paper and then I get going. Like I just write what it was. So I don't really take any time to do it. And then I put the paper aside and get back to what I was doing. So there's that kind of fierce forward. That's single tasking. Multitasking is where you're doing 2 things at once. And it doesn't hurt either one, right? So if I was trying to, type an email, I shouldn't also be, doing something else, right? That's single-minded. But in these multitasking, it's like if the day before vacation, you say, well, I've got an hour in the car. Well, you're not just going to sit in the car and listen to the radio. You're going to say, I can do these calls. Like, what are the other things I could do? Maybe I want to listen to that new podcast that Howard came out with, right? So I'll put that on my list. But you're doing 2 things at once. I'm driving and I'm doing that. I'm working out, but I'm also doing something else. My Peloton bike, I haven't missed a day since it arrived, but that's because I have an insert that turns it into a desk. So like I can ride and do some work, right? So I'm looking for that multitasking, play with the kids and exercise, right? Where can I do things together? Even if you're doing some kind of housework or something, and then build in something else there. And then the last one is batch tasking. So single, multi-batch. Batch means takes the context for things and you put them together. So on the day before vacation, you're really focused on like, all right, I've got 5 calls to make today. You're not going to do one now, one later. That you're going to say 5 calls, 15 minutes, go, right? You're batching that together, or all your computer work. I don't want to sit down and get ready to work on the computer 5 times during the day. No, batch it all together, do it once. Or running errands, super slow. If you're like run an errand, come back to work, go an errand, come back to work. No, you batch that together, right? And you batch all the errands in one shot. So that's the big thing. So plan, delegate, and focus PDF. Other little things, where you can listen to podcasts. Typically I listen at a higher speed than 1, right? So
Right.
maybe 1.3, 1.4. So there are ways like there that you can kind of compress time as well. And the biggest thing that the day before vacation attitude brings you is it actually releases the perfectionist, right? Because you don't have time to make it perfect. It's got, done is better than perfect. Good is good enough. And you're moving at a fast pace. So that's a little bit of an overview of the 30-minute out.
I love it. I love it. Thank you. And again, we're going to provide backlinks so folks can, they're going to be excited about a lot of the insights that are being shared today. And uh, they'll definitely have a place to go to kind of consume that information. Before we head out today, Blaine, a couple questions. On Success Insight, we often have what's called an insight to go. And you've provided a lot of insights today. Maybe you have one more in your back pocket. Something that you would like to share with our guests could be a quote, an article. I know you've co-authored a number of books. Go pick up a copy of, your version of Think and Grow Rich. But what would you like to leave our listeners with before we head out today?
Yeah, I think I would just, I'd like to leave the listeners with hopefully an understanding of kind of the power of your own mind and the power you have to influence yourself. And that you can take control of your life by taking control of yourself and try to work with your mind, to make that happen. I like that saying, white table, what you think about, you bring about. And probably if I was to direct people, if they wanted to get to know me more or learn anything or connect with me, or I could provide any of the materials that I talked about today, would be just to go to blaintedx.com. So BLAINE TED, TEDx.com. And that's a website where you can opt in and get a copy of my TED Talk, also a transcription, but then you'll get to know me. So through emails, I send you my articles and I kind of get to know you. You'll have my email address and all that stuff. And then we can, I can develop a relationship with you there and see how I can help you and how I could, best serve you. And that would probably be the best thing, is to realize the power of your mind, no matter where you are, right? So you might be in a great space and you want to just keep riding that wave, surf that wave, or you might be in a head trash place, and you need to crawl out of that. So I've been in a number of head trash places myself, and so there's a lot of ways to crawl out of that, to set new habits, and to move forward. So I'd be happy to help, but hopefully some of the things we learned today about Think and Grow Rich, about how the mind works, the RAS, start programming that, change your unlock screen, have some 30-minute hours. I mean, there's enough stuff to work on, but the most important thing is the thing you'll do. So, take one step, don't try to do everything, pick one and do that for a little while and then add another one.
I love it. I love it. And thank you for that insight. And we will, of course, provide the backlink to BlaineTEDx.com. It sounds like a great place to kick off there, learning more about you and your work and starting that new relationship. So, Blaine, it's been a pleasure. I'm so glad you reached out on LinkedIn, and it definitely brought back a great memory because that the graphic on my cell phone, it was replaced by a picture of the Milky Way. Coming out here, I get to go out and take pictures of the Milky Way, but now I'm going to put my Waiteba, overlay that on top of the Milky Way. So I have the best of both worlds. So thank you again for reintroducing me to that most powerful tool. I appreciate it. And also, Blaine, thank you for your time and just a lot of great insights today. And, perhaps we'll do this again and kind of continue to dive into some of the other areas that you're working on.
I'd love to do that, Howard. And thank you. You are, I like to call you the insight master. You're providing insight on a lot of levels. So I hope people will not only subscribe and check out this podcast, but all the other ones. I know you have an outdoor world one, you got a Monday mindset one. And so you are pouring into the world. And so I hope that people will subscribe and then let them know how you're affecting their life. Cause that's what you and I both like. And, we want to help and we're here to do that. And I'm happy for the opportunity to do it today and be happy to come back some other time and do it on some other topics.
Sounds like a plan. Well, Blaine, stay in the line. We're going to do a quick close and then you and I can have a final chat. Okay.
Sure.
All right, folks, we've just been chatting with Blaine Oelkers, and really, what a wonderful conversation. I mean, and I tell my own career coaching clients, I mean, you need to be on LinkedIn. It's not only it's a great way to create a well-branded, well-crafted profile that communicates your brand, but it's also a way to network and meet some wonderful people who are doing some amazing work. And, just through a message that came in about inquiring about the podcast, it's like, wait a minute, I know this guy. And, I was reacquainted with this little tool I was using on my smartphone to, develop these habits and to think about things that I wanted in my life. And the fact that those were now on the front burner. And I would always think about it as I was unlocking my phone. And so what we chatted about earlier about a challenge for you, I mean, I'm going to have my Waiteba graphic on the show notes. Blaine's going to share his. And, like and comment. And also, if you like, we'll send us your white table. We'll figure out a way to, share the email address, but we will add yours to the show notes. But if it made a difference for you, that's even more important. The insights that you picked up from today's episode about brain, the habits, the power of the mind, Think and Grow Rich by Napoleon Hill, and the kind of the updating and the spin that Blaine has done to that book to make it his own, or to incorporate that wonderful text into his own work. And so to make it even more powerful, because you not only need to think about something, but you need help. You need to be around groups of people who are going to support you and challenge you in some cases. But at the end of the day, this type of masterminding and conversations, accountability, is what helps us get out there and succeed. Now, again, folks, if you want to learn more about Blaine and his work, visit blainetedx.com. Now, we'll provide the backlink, so no, don't worry about the spelling. We'll have it out there on our show notes. If you enjoyed today's podcast, do visit us on successinsidepodcast.com. We are on Facebook. We're on LinkedIn. And you can find us on all of the major podcasting platforms: Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Spotify, et cetera, et cetera. We'll have the links back to those sites as well. And above all, we want to hear what you thought about today's episode. Did you like it? If you did, share it with your friends, comment on it. Let us know what insights you received, obtained out of this particular episode. Okay, folks, wherever you are, whatever you're doing, go out there, have a phenomenal day, and we will see you on a future episode of Coaching and Consulting Insights series on the Success Inside Podcast. Take care now.
Success Insight is a production of Fox Coaching and First Story Strategies. Find us online, successinsightpodcast.com.